We've got a list of 1,000 people that want coaching. I literally cannot make a profile.
How am I going to explain the career gap? How are people finding out if they have ADHD? Is it talked about a lot more now?
Well, what I personally wish I'd had is...
Hey everyone, welcome to the pod. Hope you're all well. Today I've got a fascinating guest, Leanne Maskell, former Vogue model turned powerhouse advocate and founder of ADHD Works, author, leading voice, trained loads of different companies about ADHD in the workplace. Super interesting. So I'm bringing her on to chat about how recruitment can unintentionally filter out people, and what it takes from her perspective to build a truly diverse workplace where everyone can thrive, and how to go about doing it. So really interesting conversation, great perspectives. Hope you find the conversation interesting. Leanne, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. We're just chatting about your move down to Brighton.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Hopefully. Do you want to give a little intro, like who you are, what you do, your firm? Just give some context, and then we can dive in.
I am Leanne Maskell. I have written 5 books, including probably the most relevant one here, ADHD Works at Work. I'm the founder of ADHD Works, which is a company that does everything you can imagine connected with ADHD and now autism. So we have run retreats, we've done training for companies like Google and Disney. We've run lots of different courses, including training over 500 somehow ADHD and autism and ADHD coaches around the world. We provide one-on-one coaching, and that's what takes up too much of my time.
Love that. Where do we start? 5 books.
Yeah.
How did you find writing the books? I'm just writing one at the moment. It's quite interesting experience to like write a book.
How's it going?
It's an interesting experience. I mean, I'm actually doing it with someone else. So I've got a co-author called Stacey, who is in Denver, Colorado, and I'm in London. And we're writing a book on recruiting and so forth. It's been a really nice experience because I chat a lot, like I talk a lot, and I write a lot of content, and I come on podcasts and all of that. But then getting your ideas down into like a book that someone might want to actually like buy and pick up and use and like, fold the pages over and maybe highlight a few things, it's different.
Yeah. It's funny because I've coached a lot of people to write books now. And it's almost like it's different in style, but actually if you're writing on the internet already, if you're writing at work, like you're writing, I always coach people that are doing PhDs and university things, and I'm like, well, dissertation is essentially a book. It's just not published. But yeah, for me, I am hyperlexic, which means that I process through reading and writing. Something I only found out about recently, which explains how I've been able to write 5 books, and I also just write and it just comes out of me, and I think the secret to it is finishing it, like setting an end point when you're starting out. And so like all of mine are things like A to Z format, or ADHD Works at Work as understanding, supporting and harnessing ADHD. So like making the end point before you start, and then just write, finish it, and then go back and look at it 5,000 times and change it. But the point is to write it and get it out before looking at it, and not to think, oh, would anyone be interested in this, and thinking about it from that side of things, but looking at your side, like what do you want to share? Right for yourself.
That is true. How do you think all this book writing stuff's changed like now? Because you've got so much AI stuff around now, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard for AI to replicate what a human experiences, and I think books are just stories, really, like of our life. And that's why when I've been coaching other people to write books, I'm like, don't bother putting stuff in that you can read on Google, put things in that you can't replicate on AI. So like my last book it was ADHD blooming differently, and that was about being diagnosed with autism as well as ADHD. And that one came from the experience was really overwhelming, and I wrote out my whole life after the diagnosis in like 10 days. And then I was like,
Wow.
oh, this could be useful. And then I went through it chapter by chapter and like kind of analyzed it for autism and ADHD in each kind of stage of my life, and then published it. And then I had a big publisher that wanted to buy it, but they wanted to publish it next year. And they also wanted me to take out all of the bits that were like me. So I was like, well, no. So I turned them down and I just published it, and it sold amazingly, like 2,500 copies in a couple of months,
Amazing.
and it's done
Amazing.
really amazingly. And yeah, it's that permission slip.
Yeah. And you can publish that on Amazon now, like self-published and all of
Exactly.
that stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You do the audiobook. Why do you even need, and I think you still got to do the marketing yourself anyway,
Oh,
like
we
a
did
lot
the
of the time.
audiobook. Yeah, and the marketing work, I work with a really good book PR agency, and I have worked with them for years now, because the first book that I wrote, I was 25, and I wrote a book about modeling, like fashion modeling, um, basically to help other models avoid exploitation. And everyone told me when I was writing that book, no one cares about models. Who's your publisher? You can't write a book. It was rejected by literally everyone I sent it to. And then I was like, I just need someone to publish, like, just to get it out of my head,
Wow.
because I felt like it was really important information to share, because people do not get told about modeling. What, like, most people that are doing it are kids and
You
their
start
parents.
young, right? Like super
Yeah,
young.
something crazy, like 60% of people that start it are under the age of 16.
Shit, yeah.
And so you're literally a child doing an adult job, and there's so much that you're not told about on purpose. So I just wrote that out. I started at 13. So I just wrote it after like struggling myself, and found a hybrid publisher at that point. They're called Practical Inspiration, who are really great. And they had this book PR company included in the package. And first of all, I was really lucky because I lived with some really top best-selling vegan cook authors, and they
Wow.
told me that
How'd you do?
yeah, their publisher takes 90% of their profit of their sales. So I was like, okay, why would I bother doing that then? I was like, I'm gonna go find my own. So Practical Inspiration at the time, they took 10%, which made sense to me. I paid like £7,000 back then. And then that included the PR, which I really did not expect to go anywhere whatsoever. I just need it out of my head. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the PR agency emailed me when I was in Australia, and they said, "Here is a big list of all the people that want to talk to you." And I was like, I read it in the middle of the night and thought it was a dream. I woke up and opened it again. It was like, the Times want a front page exclusive, and you to go and shoot photos in their studio, and Lorraine want you to go and on TV and talk to her. And I was like, what? And
This
so
is like
yeah, you don't need it. So actually, if anything, the publisher much worse at PR, much worse, because
yeah, yeah.
got loads of books to publish, and that's what really annoys me about the whole industry. In that young authors, especially, or new authors, they don't realize about things like advance payments, royalties, or
Yeah.
their book is not going to necessarily be in Waterstones, and it's not going to be on the Times bestseller list, because your publisher is probably publishing loads of other books
Mhm.
at the same time. So it's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. What about do you do any of the audiobooks? Do you like record yourself?
Yeah,
Do you?
there's a great company called Radio Broadcasting in Shepherd's Bush in London, and they are just a brilliant team of these two guys, and they record it all, and you can upload it yourself on ACX and Spotify.
Sick.
So yeah, like
So
we're
they
living
record it for you. So
with. Mhm.
they read your book out. You never fancy
I
doing it
I read
yourself
it out.
from home? You read it out. Right, right,
It's
right.
very painful. I do not wish to read it out, but a lot of, especially in the world that I work in, like with people that are neurodivergent, audiobooks are often a lot more accessible for them than written. So I have spent many years
You
of my
have
life
to,
reading
mate.
out my own writing,
You
and it's
have
not
to.
fun. But it's nice that they like it, so that's good.
No,
But
I'm way better at audio, like
oh
way
really?
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 definitely. I think I take a lot more in. I'm quite
Mm.
slow at reading, and I'm much better with like audio podcasts and things like that. Um, and it's
I'm
good. It
not
means I can access a lot more books than I would
exactly.
do. So no, it's
Yeah,
good.
having enough. Do you have a publisher for your book?
Then we're going to do it ourselves on Amazon,
Oh,
Amazon
great.
Publishing. Yeah,
Yeah.
because then we can do print to order.
Mhm.
It will go on Kindle, and then we're gonna hop in the studio and record the audio and stuff, and then
Great.
um,
Yeah, you should talk
we'll
to
get
Ella from the book publicist. That honestly, I then got them again when the book ADHD and A to Z got bought by a big publisher after I'd self-published it, and I was just furious because they got literally no PR for it, and I was like, "This should be so easy." Like compared to the modeling book, I was like,
yeah,
ADHD is in the news like every day. So I went back to the book publicist, and they have done such an incredible job. It's been like Forbes, BBC Breakfast,
amazing.
like everywhere, Reader's Digest. And the thing is, we also see these kind of status symbols of press coverage, but actually, in reality, it doesn't necessarily make that big of a difference. Like, what does make a difference is the people in your network. When I did my
Yeah,
first
yeah.
book, I literally gave away a book to every single person that would have possibly bought one. I was like, don't buy one. And now I've kind of.
Signed. Well, this is my first book. I mean, it's interesting. I really wanted to do it, and I wanted to write it with Stacey because we're just just it was just really good. It was really good to go through. So I'll probably end up doing more and more.
Yeah, that's once you realize
Um,
like how easy it is, you're like, well,
yeah, yeah,
I can write a book about anything. You're like,
it's
cool.
great. I just want that bestseller title somewhere on
Yeah,
that.
put it in a
I
niche
mean,
category. I've been
I
the
need to
number
get
one
super
bestseller in
niche.
suicide for a long time now. It's great. Um, no, right, fair enough. It's a lot about suicide, so fine. And
It's
yeah,
important.
and
It's a
that's the thing. It's
topics.
not
Yeah.
like people were like, "Oh my god, you're a bestseller! You've been like the ADHD book has been a bestseller for literally since it came out." But it doesn't mean anything, these kind of,
No,
like,
no, no.
status symbols and
No, 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 you're right, you're right, you're right. As long as, like, the right people are reading it, it's helpful, all of that, you know? So,
yeah,
but it's worth setting some context. Can we just set some context on, like, so ADHD, what is it?
yeah,
Um, it's diagnosed a lot, you hear a lot about it. There's quite a lot of stuff. So just, like, maybe just kind of to set the scene. That'd be
yeah.
really useful.
So ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition that is linked with symptoms of impulsivity, inattention, and hyperactivity, and it's diagnosed generally when a person's life has reached a state of disorder. So 2 or more areas of your life have to be what they call significantly impacted to meet that threshold, which is why not
So
everyone has ADHD.
so, like, what would you say, like, what exactly?
I'll give you an example of me when I was diagnosed. I was literally about to kill myself, would apply for a million jobs a day. Every time I got rejected, I was like, I'm going to kill myself. Then I'd wake up fine. Then move country. Then I would change industry completely. Anything I did manage to get, then I would quit after a few days. And I was like,
Oh,
actually, no, I don't want to be like a restaurant PR person. And then I would quit and I'd feel bad about myself. Then I'd go out and get drunk. And then I would move country. And then I would argue with my friends and family. And so when I got diagnosed, I didn't even have a GP. Like I was not even tethered to the ground. I don't know how I survived. Yeah, so that was bad. Those were
crazy.
really
What a story.
significant attacks that
And
I
this was and this was at what, like, what this is in your early
had
20s?
from yeah, like 20 to 25.
Right.
And before that, I think it was a lot more masked. For me, that really came up after I finished university. So when
Right.
I graduated from studying law, even though I didn't really go to university very much or engage with school, having the structure of a full-time education was really, really important for me because once that was gone, my life just spiraled out of control. And yeah, and I think it's very similar for many people out there because suddenly you're thrown into the world and expected to know what you want to do for the
Yeah,
rest of
yeah.
your life.
Crazy.
And I think even worse now because we're living in a world where you can literally sit on Instagram and look at all of the potential jobs you could do and LinkedIn. So
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I wanna yeah, no, 1,000%, 1,000%, 'cause, like, with education, it gives you a structure. If you're in the UK, you generally, you go to school, probably do your GCSEs, probably do your A-levels, although if you don't, you can go to do a vocational thing, whatever. Then if you're good to your A-levels, you probably go to uni, and then suddenly you're 21 and you're like, so many options available. It's
mhm.
like, and you've got the career person being like, "What do you wanna grow and be when you grow up?" And you're like, you know? and then you start. It's just so many. There's so many people find it like difficult, very difficult when you kick
Exactly.
off. Especially if you haven't quite found like your thing. Like what makes you happy, what you're good at, what your strengths are. Like it's not easy. It takes people a long time.
Yeah,
And men, our brains are only fully developed like mid-20s or something.
exactly.
Takes us a long time. Takes us a long time.
Yes. But then if you've got a neurodevelopmental condition like ADHD or autism on top of that, that would basically qualify you as neurodivergent. So it means like your brain wiring just works differently from most people's. So whilst I always really like the analogy of zebras and horses, like the zebras are not being ridden like horses, but they're both in the same kind of family because they grew up in they evolved in a different environment where there were a lot more predators. So they basically can't be literally broken in like horses. And if you compare that to humans, it's like, yeah, it's hard, graduating university, but then most people adapt, most people get a job, they have to, they don't have the brain like mine that's like, well, I've got no money. Oh well, let me go live in this random stranger's house. It'll be fine. They kind of are like, okay, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. So for me, it felt like being a fish that was in the ocean swimming like the wrong way. And I do think that actually the neurodivergent point of view is very valid. Like, how do you decide what to do with your life? And why are people okay with just going into a job and that being their life forever and ever and ever? But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess most people don't think that way, which is
But do you
all
think?
right.
But do you think most people, say most people, right? But just individuals, because we're all different, right? And is that just something do you think that everyone goes through that,
Yeah,
irrespective of
sure.
how our brain is wired? And
Well, I think it's hard to generalize, but I think everyone goes through the human experience of being like, who am
yeah,
I? What am I doing with my life? Am I making the right choices? But I think probably the difference for neurodivergence is like your brain is literally wired in that way. So you don't have that same level of maybe self-control or ability to I went to a doctor and I was like, I'm gonna kill myself, and he was like, you're fine, you just need to pick one thing and stick to it. And I was like, I know, I would love it if someone could tell me how to do that. I don't want to wake up every day and like have no idea what I'll do by the end of the day. And so I think it's those balances between, like, I think for example, someone I met recently, like they were very stressed out and they're very busy doing a very busy job, but they did not have a single minute of their time to themselves. They were running between person to person to person. It's like everyone is busy,
yeah,
but some people have got the ability to like say no or to stop and be like, actually, I need to eat food. Actually, I need to go to sleep. They just
yeah,
like literally didn't have the capacity to say no to anybody. So it's that balance that is really difficult because it's not
yeah,
visible, and also you don't realize that the way you think isn't normal. Like an example, when I did my A levels, I literally couldn't listen in school, so I just thought I was stupid, which was very much the kind of consensus around me as well. But then I got all A's in my exams, and my teacher literally asked the whole class if I cheated because she was like, "It's not possible that she's got A." I have no idea. I do feel like I cheated. I shouldn't have got all A's, but I did, and
you killed it. You killed it.
know,
I mean,
like I didn't learn that from school. I learned that from the month
vision,
before. I just taught myself and deleted. I got someone to
amazing.
change the password to social media, and I just crammed it all in my brain. I could write it all out, but then I couldn't remember any of it. And so then, and then I graduated with a law degree in the same way. And then you come into this world like a real imposter because you're like, technically, I look like I can do things, but I have no idea how I've done it. And yeah,
I
it's just
mean,
that difference.
everyone's just fumbling their way through. But like so
Exactly.
much of education is like it's geared to like being able to like read and write stuff.
Hmm.
And if you've got something, dyslexia, ADHD, whatever it might be, it's like not quite set up for you to win or for you to do well
Exactly.
at, doesn't what's the testing?
Yeah, it's a one size fits all system.
It's a bit
And
of a one side, yeah.
I'm fortunate that my autism, which I didn't realize at the time, is very good at pattern spotting. So like with exams, I could just see the patterns that I needed to meet and do them. I could recognize what they wanted and figured out the most easy way to meet those criteria and did it. And but
Photographic memory, or
I
like
don't
did
know
you?
photograph it. Like very much like that hyperlexia I mentioned at the start. Like
Yeah,
I can write things out and then write it out again and remember it, but I can't really
right.
explain it to you of what that means or like the processes. I can just it goes in a different part of my brain that's not really accessible. And the same for me
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I do write like books. Like I don't really sit there and think, what shall I write about? I
yeah,
just
yeah.
write and it comes, which does create this constant sense of imposter syndrome because you're like, I don't know where it's come from. I don't know, it's come from somewhere.
But what's interesting though is again, I mean, this is probably general for everyone. It's like you did amazing at school. You got yourself a great degree, but still, right? You whoever wanders into the real world, and it just there needs to be a lot more help and discussion about, well, what now? Because
Yeah,
just because you've got 3 A's, just because you know, just doesn't mean you're going to get a good job. Doesn't mean you know what you want to do. Doesn't mean I know. So we need a lot more thinking and support, I think, around that.
definitely.
Just trying
Because
stuff, you
how
know.
do you know what you like if you have not tried anything
Yeah,
before?
and
And
even just encouraging people to try stuff,
yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
Like, I'm actually really grateful for those, they were not great, and I'm really lucky that I'm still here, but looking back, I'm really grateful that I got to try all these different experiences, and I quit, and I was like, "Nope, don't like it. Nope, nope. Everyone here is miserable. Nope, not doing transport law. Nope, not doing marketing." Because I got to experience all these different things, and then especially now these days, I kind of bring them all together in the as being an entrepreneur, and I think that is why a lot of neurodivergent people do end up being
You,
entrepreneurs.
yeah, yeah. What you've done is great. Like, as in, you've
Thanks.
tried loads of things. No, it's amazing because you did what a lot of people wish that they could do, but don't have the courage or whatever to do. Like, it's great to try stuff.
Impossible to but
Or
it's
just, yeah, whatever you, yeah.
we live in a world that is very shaming, even, like, talking about recruitment, like, career gaps. I remember LinkedIn when I first got it, I was
Mm.
like, "I literally cannot make a profile and put on it that I've done, like, a few days at ASOS or, like, a few days or that I've done modeling," and I was like, I'm never gonna get a job." Like, it was, like, the shame of just existing, and I've spoken to people as well who have done things like this great guy who is a really, really talented chef and really successful in the kind of corporate food world. And he
Right.
trained as an electrician, and he was like, "But I'm so embarrassed to tell people that I can fix the oven if it breaks," because he was like, "It's a really weird thing to have done in the past." And I was like, "It's not weird. It's great. This is a
Great.
great thing. It's just that we live in a world that is very conformist, but I do think the state that we're in now has changed things a lot where like my sister quit her marketing job and set up a bath bomb company. She did really well. Now she's back doing marketing, but you know,
No, but do you know what? People think, like, it's funny because, like, one thinks, oh, how am I going to explain the career gap? Or it's really embarrassing. I only stayed for 1 year. Or, oh my God, you know, but actually, like, it's very normal for people to move, especially over like the last 6, 7 years, right?
yeah,
I saw a CV like a year or so ago, and there was like a gap of 2 years. It was like pandemic parenting. And this person was a parent. I had to look, you know, like, it's just very normal. But as individuals, we often feel embarrassed because it's not worked out, or I've tried a few different things. I'd love to be able
yeah.
to fix an oven. I mean, damn, I can't even.
Me too. Yeah. That's why I don't
Yeah,
really take an approach like that when I'm hiring people. I love people that have done lots and lots of different things because like the girl we've got now, Charlie, she's amazing and she worked at a Blue Light Card Foundation charity before this, like managing grants for
right,
like charity grants. And so she's been able to set up our scholarship program on the side of managing all of our clients. But she set up the scholarship for like the ADHD coaching training because she has got the skills in her brain to be able to make decisions like that. I do not. I'm like, everyone, let's give them all a scholarship. She's like, no, we can't do that, Leanne. But
yeah,
it's amazing when you can give people environments where they can use their different skills.
yeah, yeah. They're incredible. But I want to put on a couple of strings. Firstly, I mean, so you found out you had ADHD and so forth, like 20s. But like, if we just go back a bit, maybe to like kids and things, um, like how are how are people finding out if they have ADHD? Is it talked about a lot more now? And then just a follow-up question, which I'm really interested in, is um, like with social media, smartphones, YouTube, gaming, like does that play into it at all, or has no influence in it whatsoever?
Two good questions. The first one about children finding out. I think and they're both kind of actually answered by a similar concept. So the pandemic. I think the pandemic had such a huge life-changing impact on everyone, but
Yeah,
it's almost like now we don't talk about it, or like pandemic parenting and the CV. Like it's like a memory, but actually the lasting effects are really severe because not only did obviously people lose other people in their life, etc. Like our collective understanding of what's normal changed overnight. And then we're all expected to go back to normal. And when you can see when the environment changes like that, like I know that a lot of parents with their children saw their children better able or unable to focus because they
yeah,
had to teach them and they
yeah.
could see that, oh, actually this isn't normal, if you like, or that their children like refuse to go back to school. And this is why I've not had children, because what do you do if your child is just refusing to get up from bed? Like I have no idea what they would do. Like it's really hard. Like how do you convince someone to go to school if they're just like, no, I'm not going? And you can kind of understand it because these kids have been through so much and told, don't go to school, do go to school. I talked to a woman recently who said that her son has been given iPads for the whole year. Um, and they've all got iPads now because the school's got a connection with Apple. But then they have to write their exams at the end of the year in pen. And she was like, "No, I don't write anymore." And it's just like these poor kids. And they're also seeing people on the internet, kind of like me. Like I've just trained an 18-year-old girl who refused to go to school for 2 years as an ADHD coach, and it was such an amazing experience to be able to train her up. But like her ability to pass geography exams has no effect on how good of a coach she is. Actually, all of the challenges she's had make her an amazing coach for the kids that need someone they can relate to.
Yeah.
So I think we're all living in a very shifting time. Like you mentioned AI, like, why would anyone go to school if you can just ask ChatGPT to write it for you? Like write whatever you want. So I think a lot of parents realized that during the pandemic, also the mental health impacts, and that is really strongly linked with ADHD. Then I think the second question you asked is a really important one because I don't know how long you've been looking at screens today, but I've been looking at them for a long time today already. And,
Oh,
we
God.
all do.
Computer,
Yeah.
iPad, got the phone
Yeah.
here. I mean, I've got
Little screens. We take a break from the laptop. We watch the TV. We look at our phone 100 times a day. Like, we are all living in a world now where our attention is being hacked 24 hours a day. And so I would suggest that we all have got a degree of symptoms of ADHD to the extent that, like, we can't remember what we went on our phone to do, and somehow we've got distracted and ended up scrolling on social media, etc. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have been born with the neurodevelopmental condition of ADHD. Similarly, I was reading about how younger people really don't want to talk on the phone now. And I get it because, God, when I was made to talk on the phone by someone in my first marketing job, I burst into tears. But again, that's not necessarily the same thing. It's like if you grow up talking to people on text on the internet, it's much easier to do than real life.
Yeah,
So
I mean, having a chat like this is like not
yeah,
so easy for many people.
yeah, exactly. And this is easy for me to do, to fit in and just talk to you, and and even this conversation, like we're talking to strangers essentially.
Yeah,
When I was growing up, I was told not to talk to strangers on the internet. And, now there's apps literally designed for that purpose, like dating apps and stuff. So I think
yeah,
it's really important to recognize the environment that we're all living in, and recognize that everyone deserves help in whatever way they need to get that help.
yeah,
Like a friend of mine told me yesterday how they had gone for an autism assessment they've been waiting 2 years for, and was told they're not autistic, they don't meet the criteria, and it's just trauma. But then they're not given any help for that. Like, so I don't think that someone should have to meet certain man-made criteria and fit into a box of ADHD or autism or whatever it is to get support. We should be looking at people. And so, yeah, like I wrote a book called The Reality Manifesto about this, about social media and exploitation and mental health, because when I started coaching, I was really disturbed by how much people want to. I'm personally disturbed by my own success of the company, because we've got a list of 1,000 people that want coaching, and it's just me and Charlie and a couple of contractors, and it's very hard work.
Amazing.
There are
Yeah,
so many people that need help,
yeah,
and I was really overwhelmed. And when I was coaching like teenagers in the beginning, it was amazing and terrible to see how they would spend their whole day on TikTok, and their parents don't really understand what TikTok is or how damaging it is. And obviously they
yeah.
don't either. Like, they think it's dancing videos, but actually that's giving them all these messages of like, you should have something to post on your social media profile. Like, I had a girl that was like 15 who was upset that she didn't have like a kind of brand. And I was like, you are 15. You shouldn't have anything to post on social media. Like,
And it's
you know,
crazy. You also just can't. You're just constantly scrolling, or like even YouTube. I mean, I love YouTube,
yeah.
but like for like young kids and stuff, like you just new next video, or there's a video and you've got the ones on the sides. Like just it can't be good for
It's not good.
kids' attention
It's
and
bad for all of us, all of our
things.
attention. Like,
It's kind of
so
like
I'm not
giving your
gonna sit here and be like, no, it's got nothing to do with it. It's just the people. We're all myth. Like, no, it's
I mean,
got a
look,
lot.
like I think so. Yeah, I mean, look, YouTube's a great platform. You can learn a hell of a lot, and a lot of these platforms are good. The way that you can get the way you can get sucked in, it's almost like for kids. It's like giving your kids your drug dealer's phone number. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
like
And I
it's
think
pretty.
it was really hard doing that work. It was something I was really, really passionate about and talking about. And what was really hard was like how relatively unengaged people were with it. I published that book 2 years ago, um, compared to like the ADHD stuff. And it's obviously because like we're sort of in it too deep. Like, I was sitting on the bus the other day with this dad and his daughter, and she kept trying to talk to him. He just ignored her the whole way because he was just looking at his phone. And like, it's really hard because I think we are living in a really difficult world now, and we always have done really, but like those phones do offer us all escape and also keep us constantly connected to all of the endless demands from
It's
millions of people. So
yeah.
then to
No,
switch
you're
off
right. You're right.
is really hard. And kids, of course, but they're literally growing up that is normal. Like, one of the teenagers I coach said that their phone, like we were talking about basically screen time, which they refuse to look at. Plus, refuse to look at. And then something like, I was like, what would you do if the phone broke? And they're like, it wouldn't happen. No, it wouldn't happen. I was like, could happen. It's not you. And they're like, no, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't. And eventually they were like, I've got my iPad. It's like, oh my God. Oh, we're literally living in a world where, like, we all have like online versions of ourselves. And for me, this is a really personal one because of my upbringing modeling and like how social media played into that for me, because I ended up deleting my whole account in my early 20s, because it was just a load of edited fake pictures that made me really, really depressed. And I was so frustrated that I was putting so much worth into that, even though I didn't care about it and knew all of this stuff. And yeah, I really feel for the kids growing up, for all of us actually, but especially the kids growing up on this, because yeah, it's like you said about the drug dealers. Like, we are literally all just taking drugs all day, every single day on these platforms, and they are ripping away our humanity as people. With like, I was listening to a great book called the Twittering Machine. Actually, yeah, listening to it, and he was talking about all the suicides of people and like trolls and how they would like jump on these kind of suicides, like online streaming of suicides, and like torment the families of people that have taken their own lives. And you're like,
Jesus.
what world are we living in? And
Oh,
so
man.
that's why I just advocate for humanity and like, being a nice person, empathy, give people help, whatever you know, whether, because ultimately, like all of these things like ADHD, autism, they're man-made, and like neurodiversity is natural. Everyone thinks differently. Those medical condition criteria, they're not catered for people that have managed to work with their differences. Like, I'm pretty sure that if Taylor Swift was having to work an office job, she would definitely be diagnosed with something because, like, but she's not. She's performing to millions and millions of people, and so
Yeah.
like, it doesn't account for that, and that's why we do see so many celebrities being diagnosed with these conditions, because obviously they're neurodivergent. There's something different about them compared to most people.
Yeah.
I think it's a tricky time, because even having this conversation in the context of like canceling culture, etc., and outrage, and posting something gets you more attention. It's a difficult
It's
time.
crazy.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
see it in the news all the time, like articles about how ADHD is not real, or how it's caused by social media or sugar or whatever it is. But it's ironic, because those articles are literally designed to get attention and clickbait and like stir up division and hate. Like, why do they care so much?
It's crazy. So what's the thing? So just to put a thing. So you're born with ADHD, for example, and then all the social media and everything just almost heightens your ability, your inability to concentrate and all of this. Is that kind of the general? And then
Yeah,
with diet and stuff, no effect at all,
I'm sure.
or just everything together?
Basically, what we're
Just
talking about is the chicken and egg scenario. So it's like,
right. Yeah.
is it that, personally for me, if you take me as an example, that I grew up with ADHD, and that made me more vulnerable to eating chocolate for meals and like seeking out caffeine and Diet Coke and stuff. I'm sure, yeah, to an extent. So these
Yeah.
neurodevelopmental conditions like autism, ADHD, etc., they're things that you're born with. But there's a great book called ADHD 2.0 who talks about how you might see symptoms in like the general population these days because of the change in environment of things like social media or diet or sugar or whatever it is. And this isn't the same as having ADHD, but they called it variable attention stimulus trait. So they basically said it's like the phenomenon of, if you put anyone in front of
Any
TikTok
human, it just
for
for
5
too
hours,
long,
they're
it's
not
game.
like,
Yeah.
the average human attention span was 3 seconds a few years ago. God knows what it is now, because I know for me, if something takes too long to load, I'll just go off the page.
Out.
And
I'm out.
yeah, we're just living in a very bizarre time, and so that's why I
Sure.
think like being an
Crazy.
ADHD coach is a very good job to do, because there are so many people that need help,
Yeah.
regardless of whether they have reached like a disorder point or whether they're just struggling in their day-to-day life.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. Looking forward, just wondering, like, kind of for folks now that are like, let's say they're entering the workforce and they've got absolutely no idea, like, what they want to do, how to even go about finding it. Your waiting list is way too long, but let's say they're on it and they're going to see you in a year's time, whatever. Are there some things that they can do to like just try and get their thinking together about what to do and even how to go about doing it?
Yeah, I think, well, what I personally wish I'd had is a coach, or known that these things existed, or, obviously I didn't know that I was neurodivergent, but I remember going to see a therapist at one point and being like, I've hit rock bottom. I've hit breaking point. And I was like, oh, and I confessed all to her. And then she was just like, oh, and I was like, what do I have? And she was like, I can't tell you. Yeah, basically I can just listen. I was like, what on earth is the point of coming here then? Like, I was like, why have I just wasted 75 pounds? Like, I could have talked to a lamppost, which I don't agree with now. I think therapy is very useful. But I wish that I'd had a coach who could have helped me to make sense of that and put it into action, like action things like go try a job, quit it, try something else. You know, I think when I've coached kids, teenagers in this position, I've said like, what's something you want to do? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, okay, what does TikTok show you? And then they're like, oh, pictures of Korea. I'm like, okay, do you want to go to Korea? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what do you need to do to go to Korea? And they're like, well, I need money. And I'm like, cool, let's look at how can you make money to go to Korea? So it's kind of thinking about life not as a big mountain to climb and you're going to pick your one career for the rest of your life, but trying to think of it like lots of different experiments and
Love that.
like try out a business idea, try out marketing, try out whatever, try out PR. Just try these things out and don't be afraid of changing your mind. And I think also just forget basically all kind of common sense education, because things like when I graduated, it was very much embodied into me of I can either do something good that helps people or I can earn money. And these two options seem polar opposite, but that's not the case at all. I would say follow your interest, because if you follow your interest, I've just spent the whole weekend working, but I loved on Saturday I had electricians come over. I had to leave the house for 5 hours. The sun was shining. I went to the library and I wrote an ethical
Love that.
compliance code for coaching because like that is genuinely what I wanted to do with my day. So like if you create a life where like what you're doing doesn't really feel like work, that
You're
is a
winning.
really good start. Like write a book. Like, when I wrote the model manifest, I had no publisher or anything, but I found that amazing because I was like, oh, I can just write all day and I can give myself something to do. And so try to do something rather than sit scrolling on social media, looking at other people living their lives. Because that is a really volunteer, literally, and just do something, give yourself a challenge every day, like, and find a coach and someone that can help you and hold you accountable to that. And don't be afraid to pay them either, because I think again it's a really big question of investing into yourself and believing that there's some, if you pay for someone to coach you, for example, like you'll be invested. They can't force you to do anything that you don't want to do, but you can be like, okay, well, I've spent money on this. I'm going to actually do the things that I've said I'm going to do this week. I'm going to go and try it out. I'm going to just push myself out of my comfort zone. And just remember you can make it up as you go along, and that's what I wish I knew back then. Of being like every day, I think for about 3 or 4 years, every single day I would wake up like being like, what do I do with my life? I just want someone to tell me. And then whenever I did get a job, I was like, not this. So make a list of what you don't want to do by experience.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. And that great advice for anyone, by the way.
Yeah,
Anyone.
exactly. Like
Yeah. Like it's great because it's just so too often you're like, you need to decide, you should do this. You get pushed into something, be a lawyer, be an accountant, go be, like it's really hard for people to go try stuff. So no, it's really good advice. Well done for that. And I think just collect experiences. Absolutely. Often like some of the best jobs are like the line manager or the people. You learn an awful lot from people you work with, and eventually you get into that. I didn't find the thing that I really love until I was in my mid to late 20s, and then found that. So
what is
recruiting. Recruiting. I run an exec search firm. I run a global executive search firm, and I got into that in my mid to late 20s. I worked in fashion actually after university, not a model, but I was like selling clothes, and then went for factories and we made clothes and things, and used to do that for like all the high street shops and stuff. Ted Baker, Topshop, Top Man, all that was really fun. Then went into recruiting, and then I set up my own search firm 15 years ago. Not
Can I
that
ask you
counting.
a question? Sorry.
Hit me.
How did you know it was the thing you really loved doing?
Because when you go in, like we're looking forward to Monday, and a bit upset that it's the end of the week.
Yeah.
For me, like my whole thing is like I love people, I love making friends, I love networking, I love conversation. I get a lot of energy from like conversations like this, from meeting new people. We've just met, we've had a great conversation. It's uplifting, it's inspiring, it's energetic. And so my job of recruiting, who grows up wanting to be a recruiter? It doesn't even come in the conversation at school, right? But then it's just, so it's people, which is for me great. I love business. I get to help companies find people find jobs, and I get to make money. And then I love different cultures and things. And I ended up building a global firm. So we're in the US, UK, Europe, Middle East, opening up in Japan. And it's super fun. I get to have conversations all day. And who knew when I was at school that I'd really like that? but I just tried a few different things like you.
Yeah,
And
and I think if you were like working for a gigantic recruitment company and like you had a mean manager and you hated your life, like it kind of what you described it as like the environment is everything, and it's like the people so often as well. It's like finding nice people and like it's not there's a great movie called Soul. It's a Disney movie, but I felt like that was
yeah,
describing
I've
my
seen it.
life. It was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what is the purpose of life? And it was like, oh, it's just to enjoy it. Okay, that's
You've got to be, you know, I know like it's so easy to say, right? Like find a job that makes you happy, that you love. And I think some people get a bit annoyed by these things because, you know, it's so easy to say, and most people find it super difficult. And most people never find it. You know, and most people I speak with don't enjoy their job. But a lot of people they don't want to change something. They moan about it. And
yeah,
if you're not
exactly.
happy, make a change. You know, like to your point of like you did something, you didn't like it, you moved, and you tried something else, you didn't like it, moved. But most people, they just have the whether it's not, I mean, not called courage, but they don't make it, they don't make a move, and they just moan about it, and it just weighs on you, and
Yeah.
it's just life's too short.
Because I think it's easier to stay in the discomfort. Like something I tried to tell people, because it's easy to look at me now. That's why I basically decided to publish that last book, because it's easy to look at me and think like, oh, like you've got it all figured out, you've published these books, blah blah. But like a huge part of why I can do that is I'm 32, I don't have any children, I don't have a partner or not very friendly. Don't know, like I've got a few friends, but like I consciously kind of really enjoy like not having loads of friends, whereas I did 10 years ago. That was the most important thing, to go out clubbing. And yeah, and like also my upbringing was quite difficult, and like I don't really have great relationships with people in my life, and I would trade that for like I would be really happy to trade like all of the things I've done for what, love, love, validation, connection, people around me. But I think that is a common thing that people often don't acknowledge, which is like, you know, this stuff, it does come at a bit of a cost. And for me, the cost was like actually becoming suicidal and then being like, well, I'm not dead, so I might as well do this, or I might as well do this, or whatever. I don't have any dignity left to lose. And then it kind of grows from there a bit. Like a lot of people, they've got like partners or children or whatever, mortgages, and so it's to make a small change and recognize like you do have control over your life. Like you will get another job, worst case scenario, or you will get, you know, you can change you can become a painter or whatever it is, and like, you know, set yourself a time limit. And if you haven't made X amount of money by whatever time, then quit and do something. But it's like not you all or nothing. But God, when I became an ADHD coach, everyone in my life was like, what are you doing? My boyfriend cheated on me. So like it's like often is there's a great analogy of like the crabs. If the crab is in a bucket of crabs and crawls out, the other crabs will pull it back down, because change is really uncomfortable. And so
Yeah,
it's hard because we all grow up in these societies. But I would say like it's good to have people around you, but it, it's not their life.
it's only good to have people around you that are there for you,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
encouraging you, you know,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
otherwise just lose them, tell them to get out of your sunshine or whatever. But no, it's so what's that?
I was like, go to the library.
Go to the
Stay up
library.
with yourself.
But no, you're right. You know, people who are like in, you know, have a family or dependents or just something, it isn't absolutely you're right. Like it's not so easy just to be like, right, I'm quitting my job. I'm not going to earn any money because you know you build up these kind of you get caught in these traps, and or maybe ego gets in the way as well. But you're right. There are always off ramps if you really want to find them.
Yeah, some of the most trapped people that I've coached and trained as coaches, because that's why we run like quite a short live course. But the most trapped people are those who earn around £100,000 a year, because they're in the comfortable zone and they're like, oh, but I've worked really hard to get here. I do hate it, but I've worked really hard to get here, and I could just do it on the side. And like, oh, and because it's a short course, that is what there's always people that quit their job, and it's so nice to see, because most people think that way. So that's why most people don't do these things. But if you're one of the few that does, like my coach said to me when I quit, leap and the net shall appear. Didn't take literally, But it was really good because like I had no choice. I had to make it work. I had to go post on LinkedIn that I was an ADHD coach, and people were like, "Oh my God, I need an ADHD coach."
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, look, it's like, when you to your point of like, you're earning more money, and it's almost like a kind of a drug a bit. And a lot of people, their expenses go up with how much they earn, and they get
Mhm.
caught in mortgages and this and that. And it's hard. Sometimes you're right, like just cut the cord and take the plunge. But I know it's very difficult for people to do. But sometimes, you just you gotta take a leap.
Yeah. Like
And even just,
I did
sorry, go on.
that. Oh, I was gonna say, like, my rent was expensive, really expensive when I wasn't happy in my job. And then I met this guy and he said, "Move in with me," after a month, and my flatmate was like, "Don't do that." And I was like, "Well," I was like, "I might as well, and then if it doesn't work out, then I can move to somewhere cheaper anyway." But I was like, I wanna quit my job anyway and do coaching, so I'm gonna have to reduce my living costs. And so it's just these like little decisions like that. Like,
Yeah.
okay, but it's just hard to do because I live in a world that's very like, my flatmate was like, I've just trained you as an ADHD coach, actually, my ex-flatmate from those days. And yeah, I'm not living with my ex-boyfriend anymore. But if I hadn't have moved, then I probably would have been like, oh, I can't, how am I gonna afford it? But eventually I would have found a flat share to live in and like done it a different way. But it's hard because sometimes you need the balance of luck, opportunity, and then just like, oh, I'm just gonna that is why I think neurodivergent people are really good at this stuff because for me personally, I act and then think, and then I'm like, no, why did we do that? But then you
But
figure it out.
you're in the game, like
Yeah,
you're putting yourself in the game, and then opportunities present themselves, don't they? When you're
yeah,
doing something, you're just
hmm
like, you're doing, so making, you're like doing stuff, and then you meet someone and this, and so you're making it happen.
yeah,
By deciding to do this, something else happens, and that has an effect, and suddenly people might call it luck. But if you didn't do this, you never would have got there. You never would have done that. You never would have met that person. You never would have done the coaching. Just so we have more. I think we have a lot more ability to affect our life, especially with work and stuff. You can decide to stay. You can decide to go. You can jump on LinkedIn. You can go look for a job. Go speak to a recruiter. Go speak to a mate. Message someone on LinkedIn if you want to go work for their company. You know, we
yeah. You
can.
can ask anyone. Like tomorrow, I'm
Yeah,
meeting a guy that before I quit my law job, I had an interview at his company. I had like many, many, many rounds of interviews, and I would have took a £10,000 pay cut as well. But I was like, it's really cool company, blah, blah, blah. I'm unhappy. And I was the last two and I didn't get it. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. I was like, I am not going to apply for another job. I'm never going to have a manager. I'm going to just quit. I'm going to set up my own company and like I'll go work with a model or in a shop or whatever on the side, caterer. But then after I quit, I thought, well, I might as well just ask him for mentorship because he was a coach and built this big company. And I just emailed him being like, I really, really admire you, blah. And he's mentored me throughout the whole time. He's been incredible. And so it's like that
well,
thing
yeah,
of just ask, and
yeah,
you don't really know what will happen from
yeah,
that. But it's just and it's really addictive as well in a different way of like, oh, you can do anything. Like you can just message someone and ask them to mentor you, and they'll probably say no or probably ignore you. But I sent Amy Lou Wood, the actress from
yeah, yeah.
White Lotus. I saw somewhere she said that she has ADHD and autism, and so I just found her manager's address and sent her manager a book, the most recent one, and I forgot about it. And then Amy Lou Wood posted it on her story a few weeks ago and was like, "I love this
There you
book so
go.
much." And I was like, "Oh, I forgot about that." But
Nice.
it's
Have
kind
you
of like
signed it for her?
I didn't. I sent it from Amazon, but she messaged and said how much it helped her, which is very amazing. And
Congrats. But see, look,
now,
you just did it. You just,
yeah,
why
you just
not? And then
you know,
it works. You get the publicity for it. And, you know,
yeah, I sent it to lots more people that don't ever do anything, but like it's fun. Like I don't really send it with that expectation.
yeah,
I more just send it because I'm like, oh, they might like this. Yeah, whatever. £10 for me. It's fine. Just send it and just
yeah, yeah.
do it from a place of like what. The word that's coming up in my head that I really don't like is like abundance of like don't do stuff with expectations. I really like this quote that
Yeah.
was like, "Expect nothing and appreciate everything."
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that's true. I love that. What a nice place to end, Leanne. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Great chat, great chat.
Good chat. Thank
We'll
you.
put your the links to like your Amazon stuff on the show notes. So if anyone wants
Great.
to get any of your 5 books, jump
Thanks.
in
Enjoy.
and stuff. And yeah, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pleasure.